A day after the music had stopped, the wind pausing the party, Paris-Nice was back on track. The sun was shining in Nice and on the Promenade des Anglais, where the race will finish 24 hours after the start of stage 7. Things were all ready to get going. Nice and up the Var Valley for the traditional start to the penultimate stage, heading up to the first climb, the longest of the race, Tourette-du-Château. Then back into the valley, an intermediate sprint, and the approach to the Côte de la Couillole, climbed for the first time since 2017 in this race, when Richie Porte had been the winner. 3,500 metres of climbing, on paper, the hardest stage of the week. 19 riders got away in a breakaway, but they were never allowed more than 3 minutes. Their numbers began to whittle down inside the final 50 kilometres as well. UAE Emirates and then Ineos Grenadiers going to work. A relative rest day in the legs. The climbers were hungry for success. All of that enthusiasm caused a crash or two. Kevin Vauquelin going down and taking his teammate's bike. He'd worked hard to chase to get on, but would lose a little too much and would not be in the final shake-up. That final shake-up was to begin with around 15 kilometres to go. Before then, though, the break was being caught bit by bit. And there was another crash before that final climb. This time with more serious consequences in the GC, Mateusz Schelmoser having to leave the race. This was our destination. Spring showing off beautiful southeast France, and as the final 15-kilometre long climb began, Kobe Goossens attacked from what was left of the breakaway, taking Javier Romo with him. The Belgian and the Spaniard stayed out there for a little while, but then Tobias Vos went to work. The only teammate left at this point for Jumbo-Visma, and the early casualty was Dani Martinez. Pogačar remained, Gaudu was there, and Vingegaard's teammate continued to tap away the rhythm. He'd last until 6 kilometres from the finish, finally pulling in Goossens, the last survivor, with 9Ks to go. Jonas Aguirre joined Martinez in being a GC rider dropped, and then after Vingegaard attacked, Pogačar would soon go too. Paris-Peintre caught up in the excitement behind, soon back on his bike but missing his moment, and Pogačar was away. They were in small groups along the climb. Pogačar was eventually brought back. Gaudu and Vingegaard doing the work to bring him. Bardet and Jorgensen would lose contact along the way of that happening. And there were 3 with just less than 4Ks to go. Not a situation that would last too long though. Behind they were fighting for every second possible. Gaudu launched his attack with 2.5 kilometres to go. Pogačar able to follow, Vingegaard again struggling, but this time faring better than he had done 3 days previous. No huge loss of time this time, and he'd be back with a few hundred metres remaining. A little look around at everybody allowed a few riders to gain back precious seconds. Then Vingegaard launched his own bid for glory. Pogačar showing his power again. The punch was there and nobody was able to live with him. Tadej Pogačar, 12 days racing on the road, having won half of them by this point. And again victorious. The perfect Paris-Nice debut, and Pogačar now primed for success on the Promenade des Anglais. The time difference is not as big as they were a few days ago, despite the climb being twice as long. But Tadej Pogačar did it again. Second victory of the week, adding to those picked up in the early season in Spain. Pogačar beating Gaudu and Vingegaard, with Yates 4th, Paulus 5th, then Mede, Bardet, Sivakov, Jorgensen and Latour. A top 10 separated by just 53 seconds. Pogačar yet again in the yellow jersey. One more day to defend for him though. And the GC gaps in this race, not enough to say it's a done deal. Just 12 seconds between Pogačar and Gaudu, 58 back to Vingegaard. The podium looking more or less safe, but you never know, with the final very, very entertaining stage around Nice still to come. Short, sharp, not often sweet for everybody. Less than 120 Ks, climb after climb after climb, and the famous Couillole being the final climb of the race. All to play for in Paris-Nice. You'll better watch the final stage as usual on GCN+, the home of cycling.